What's going on? Welcome to the Take the North podcast, presented by Odyssey. I am Dan Wiederer. Pleased to be joined today by my former colleague at the Chicago Tribune, Sean Hammond. Sean, we have made our way into week 11 of the NFL season. The Bears are atop the NFC North, tied with the Detroit Lions. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on again. I'm always happy to jump on with you.
It's great to converse. I got to admit, I'm shaken by what I just said to you, and I was shaken Monday night as I went to bed, realizing how far this Bears team has come in a calendar year. To look at those standings, to be in mid-November, to be closing in on Thanksgiving, and have the Bears there at the top. It's an unfamiliar feeling, and I think Chicago is trying to figure out what to do with it. Where does your head sit here on the start of Week 11?
It's jarring. I'm with you. That's a weird thing to look at in the standings, to look at 6-3, to look at tied for first place with the Detroit Lions at the top of the NFC North. I mean, you certainly just give Ben Johnson and his team props. I mean, I know they've beaten some bad teams, but they've taken care of business when they needed to. And you could, with the Chicago Bears, you can't always assume that they're going to do that, because we've seen in the past that even when you got some beatable opponents, that doesn't mean they're winning games.
Did you watch the Monday night game between the Packers and the Eagles?
I did not. I tuned out of the NFL Monday night, and I did see the final score there, and so I have some ideas of what that looked like.
Yeah, it didn't look pretty, that's for sure. And I had two prevailing thoughts coming out of that football game on Monday night. The first was that Vic Fangio is still an absolute menace to deal with, and the Bears have him coming up in the schedule on a short week, the day after Thanksgiving in a few weeks. And so I hope they're ready for what he's going to do to challenge them offensively. Obviously, he's got weapons all over that defense that can make life uncomfortable for you. And the second one that I came away with is Detroit, the Packers rather seem in total disarray right now. They've lost back-to-back games at home, one to the Panthers, one to the Eagles, and they just feel like a team that's sort of fraught with tension right now. And then you see the Bears leapfrog them by virtue of that loss Monday night in Green Bay, and you're like, all of a sudden you see Matt LaFleur, he's up at a podium answering questions on whether he's coaching for his job, and it's just this life comes at you fast reminder about what the NFL is.
Yeah, absolutely. And with the Packers, it's like you feel like they just figured something out with Tucker Kraft, and then he goes down with the injury, and now it's almost like they don't know what to do. They're still trying to figure out that identity now that Kraft is hurt and what that's going to look like. And it's hard to find your identity when you're in November. That's not an ideal scenario.
Right. They're without Tucker Kraft, Matthew Golden out, Romeo Doubs left that game on Monday night. And so there is this sense that the division is shaky, and it's shaken up, and it's shaken up more than we thought it would be when we came into the season. The Bears are going to visit another team in Minnesota this weekend that seemingly having its own sort of identity crisis and all sorts of tension involved with how they can get themselves back on the right track. Look, like this is an interesting time of year for the Bears to have some momentum and some wind at their back as they go into a more challenging stretch of the schedule. But I think they have to be very pleased with their ability to get results out of a stretch of football here that hasn't been super pretty, but yet has resulted in 6 wins in 7 games.
Yeah, they're winning close games. They're making big plays down the stretch. I mean, man, you just think about the play that Colson Loveland made in Cincinnati. Combine that with the back-to-back touchdown drives this week to win that game against the Giants. I mean, that's a heck of a 2-week stretch for your offense when it absolutely matters. And you love to see, obviously, Caleb make some big throws and some big scrambles. You love to see him hitting some of those rookies. Colston, Luther Burden had a big play there before the game-winning touchdown. And there's some momentum there. You feel that with the offense. You feel that with where these Bears are at right now. And again, sure, they've beat up on some bad teams, but they're doing what they need to do to put themselves in position. We were writing through our pressing questions of the week over at the Tribune, and one of them was, we're at the halfway point. True or false? This is a playoff team, and I went true just because I think they put themselves in position where they just have to be close in some of these games down the stretch. I know you got the Eagles. You got the Packers twice. But again, after Monday night, that Packers team is kind of in disarray. You got the Lions. There's some good opponents, but I don't foresee this being the same team that got blown out by the Lions in week 2.
Here's a little reminder zeroing back even further than week 2, this is the 1-year anniversary this week of Shane Waldron's launch as the offensive coordinator in what was a completely turbulent and a mess of a season in 2024. And when you zoom out and you realize how far the Bears have come with just being able to feel settled, the ability to feel confident, it is night and day from where we were a year ago covering this football team and trying to walk in a locker room and really take the temperature on the team's psyche. What are you sensing? I mean, you're in the locker room with me, and after the game on Sunday, during the week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. What do you sense in this team's psyche right now?
Well, I sense that Ben Johnson has a plan for everything, and his players feel that and know that. And so when you're down 10 points in the fourth quarter, like, they have an idea for what Ben is going to be calling and what it's going to take to get back into the game. And on top of that, there's the belief, now that they've won some of these close games, there's that belief that they can do it. And, Ben said an interesting thing after, or maybe it was Monday after the game. Somebody asked him just about crunch time and his play calls in those moments. And he said something to the effect of, I'm thinking players more than I am plays.
Sure.
And I think that is it kind of sounds like a no-brainer, but I don't know that every coach is thinking that way. And really, B, it's really refreshing here in Chicago, because I don't know that the previous coaching staff was doing it quite that same way. And you see that coming out when they're targeting Colston Loveland, up the middle with the game on the line, or when they're going to Luther Burden with 2 minutes left to get down into the red zone. You can really feel that he's looking for his playmakers. And the good thing with this Bears team is right now with the emergence of those rookies, it looks like they have a lot of options to choose from.
Yeah, they do have a lot of options, and it's pretty impressive when you can lean into some of those options. I do think that Ben has a sense of timing and really an emotional intelligence on how to push the right buttons at the right times, and it's shown itself in the last couple months. I was struck on Sunday afternoon after the game at Rumudunze's locker when he was talking about there's hope, there's belief, and then there's the no. And this team is now put themselves in the no category, where they believe, forget it, they don't believe, they know that they're going to win a football game when it's close, and they're going out and they're backing that confidence up with results on the field. It's an incredible place to be at for a team and a franchise that has rarely been able to find that place, right? Like, where it's usually been eyes closed, fingers crossed. Oh, I really hope this turns out all right. And now it's just like, let's go, let's get together, understand the talent we have, understand the coaching we have, and let's just go execute. And we're going to walk out of here to a joyous Sunday night.
Right. And you think back to those first 2 years with Flus and Poles, and they were in a lot of close games. And it's exactly what you're saying. It's cross your fingers, get down to a one possession game, and hey, let's give it a shot. Where I don't get that vibe. Yeah, the vibe has totally changed, where it's a close game down at the end. The Bears believe they're going to win. And I think you might have been next to me, Dan, when we were talking in that post-game locker room to Cole Kmet, and he said something to that effect of it sort of trickles down from the head coach, where you believe that you're going to win these close games when the coach has a really good, he wasn't trying to knock the previous coaching staffs, but he was just saying Ben has a plan in these situations, and it's a plan that we can all get behind.
He used the phrase calming patience, and it really resonated with me, because it was this idea of, okay, it's the stress levels are rising here. We're late in the game. We're behind. You feel that human nature urge to feel a little bit frantic. And Cole was saying, look, like, you feel like, okay, we got to get going here. We don't have a lot of time. There needs to be a little rush.
Detroit and Thanksgiving, like that feeling.
Right. There needs to be a little urgency. We got to get rolling. And Cole says, like, look, we're not in a rush to get into 2-minute mode, because Ben has planned this out. He's very well organized. He knows what he wants to get to. He knows how he wants to get to it. And so you just knock it off step by step by step. And the next thing you know, a 10-point lead or a 10-point deficit becomes a 3-point deficit. And then a 3-point deficit becomes a 4-point lead. And all of a sudden you're like, okay, like, we just did that step by step, the way we're trained to do it. And now all of a sudden that adds up into a win on Sunday. It adds up into a win the previous week. It adds up to a 4-game winning streak prior to the Baltimore loss. And all of a sudden you've got a team on a roll.
Yeah, absolutely. And you and I are there watching these games live. I don't always watch the TV broadcast after the fact, but in terms of just what I see on the sideline, I mean, Ben is locked in all the time. I don't know if the TV cameras ever catch him with any sort of emotion, but to me, I don't see any emotion until he's in that post-game locker room and they won the game and he's shouting out to his guys.
Yeah. It's crazy to watch at times how very, very level and calm he is in the heat of some really fiery moments, and particularly for a guy who has so much obvious passion. You expect that to come out more in those moments. It doesn't, for whatever reason. I think it resonates with the guys around him. And it's made a big difference in where this football team is and where it can go. Where it can go now is to the playoffs. You mentioned it a few minutes ago. The Bears are firmly inside the playoff frame right now. They would be the 6th seed if the playoffs started today. They would be headed to Detroit to play the Lions if that was the case. And can you imagine how much the NFL would love to have a Ben Johnson versus Detroit wildcard round playoff game to feature, somewhere along the lines, particularly if they play in week 18, as we know they will. With that, though, I mentioned earlier this sort of shakiness in Green Bay. Matt LaFleur being asked about his job security. In Minnesota, you've got the situation where Kevin O'Connell can't seem to figure out how to get this thing unlocked. They've had quarterback situation issues with injuries with J.J. McCarthy, Carson Wentz in, then he's hurt, J.J.'s back. They're trying to get it all figured out. And then Detroit, Dan Campbell's got to wrestle play calling duties back from John Morton. And so you look around the division and you're like, man, like if ever there was a time to sort of have the wind at your back, to have the momentum, it's now, because the rest of the division seems like it's trying to figure things out. And the Bears aren't accustomed to being the team that's like, yeah, obviously we've got flaws and we've got concerns and we've got things to address, but there's some things that are working in their favor too. And all that said, like Detroit is still rolling. They destroyed the Commanders on Sunday. But it doesn't feel like the division is as strong and stable as we thought it was when we walked into week 1.
No, it doesn't. And the records are good, but still there's questions about all these teams. And you're right, like the Bears are hitting their stride at the right moment. You look at that, a potential matchup, say with the Lions, and I still think the Lions are going to be able to score a fair amount of points on this Bears defense. But I think maybe for the first time you're thinking, well, maybe the Bears can actually keep up offensively, and you don't have to shut out the Lions to give yourself a chance. And that's why I say, like, I feel like the Bears just have to give themselves a chance in some of these games because they've learned how to win close games. Like they have gone through the tests in Vegas and in Washington. And sure, they've caught some lucky breaks, perhaps. Things have gone their way in key moments. But they're finding ways to win football games. And again, like it's the NFL, especially in the division. Like when you're playing some of these teams for the second time, weird things happen.
Context is important, and we're willing to provide it here on this podcast, as our audience knows. And the Bears' strength of victory, if you go to the official NFL channels, it's not strong, right? Like they haven't beaten quality opponents to this point. We all understand that, but that's how the NFL is designed. If you finish in last place, they give you a last place schedule. That gives you three games every year against teams that finished the previous season as bottom feeders. And so you have to take advantage of those opportunities, and you do so. The Bears' schedule will get tougher here on the back half. But I was asked by someone on Monday that, like, oh man, this schedule is about to get really ugly. And my first response was, is it though? Like, I know the Vikings aren't a pushover, particularly at US Bank Stadium in Minneapolis, but this is not a game that intimidates you like it might have in the past. Beyond that, you've got a home game against a Steelers team that's also, still trying to figure out who it is. And sure, there's going to be the 4 division games. There's going to be the Eagles game on Black Friday in a short week. There's going to be a primetime game against the 49ers. It's going to get harder, no question, but it also doesn't feel to me like, oh man, this is, you cannot possibly navigate this road successfully. Yeah. Curious what you think.
Yeah, I certainly don't think they're going to come out here and, lose 4 of their last 5 or anything like this, because this is a competitive team that's shown itself to be a competitive team in almost every single game. And look, they should have beat the Vikings in week 1. And that was sort of part of the process of learning how to win with this team is also failing at it. And, I think if you're the Bears defense, you feel a little bit of confidence that you can get J.J. McCarthy to turn the football over. And that's going to be a competitive game. Same thing with the Steelers game. I mean, look, that team didn't look so good this week. You're at home. Certainly the fans are going to have their thoughts on Aaron Rodgers at Soldier Field, and they're going to make that as tough as an environment as they possibly can. And it's like the NFL you look at the schedule comes out in May, and you look at it on paper, and you have these thoughts of what stretches are going to be hard, and then the Bears, wind up facing backups in Cincinnati and Baltimore back-to-back weeks, and
Right.
you look at what's coming up here, and the Packers twice in a pretty short span, but the Packers have some things to figure out. The Eagles, great record, they're winning football games, but they have their own things to figure out. Like, these are still winnable games, and kind of like you said, Dan, is the Bears seem like they have things going in the right direction between the coaching staff and their relative health. I know they've had some guys out this year, but it hasn't been all that bad. And just the direction this offense is going. This offense is second in yards per game right now in the NFL. The Chicago Bears. What?
So that's a natural segue into talking about Ben, because I don't think that you can overstate the impact he's had here. And when you look at all of the offensive production that has spiked under his watch, and you realize that they're barely scratching the surface of what they want to become as an offense, it fills you with this optimism of where this coach can take this group of players, along with the quarterback, obviously, in Caleb Williams. I watch the passing game really quickly every Monday, and try to get a feel for what things are like. You watch some of these play designs, and you're like, okay, like you and I could succeed with some of these play action concepts, with some of these bootlegs with receivers open for a free 12 yards. You look at some of these, route combinations that are just freeing guys open, and the quarterback's just got to see it and rip it. And Caleb doesn't always see it and rip it. And so you're like, once he starts to really grasp some of this design and some of this ability to stay comfortable inside, a slightly noisy pocket, like, this offense can go to higher levels, and yet their production already has surpassed our wildest dreams of where we've been with this offense for the last 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, it's second overall in yards per game. It's I forget if it's first or second or third in the run game, but it's up there. And really, it's what you're saying. It's like that passing attack, when I checked yesterday prior to Monday Night Football, was 11th. And so you think, if you start to hit some of those, this is going to be a heck of an offense. This has the potential to really take off. Some of these tests will be fun to watch from that perspective. Ben's offense versus, say, a second crack at Brian Flores and the Vikings.
Sure.
Say, you mentioned Vic Fangio. He's coming, a couple weeks down the line, and certainly the Packers have a Micah Parsons now, and that's another challenge in itself. I think it will be really fun to watch sort of the chess match there between Ben and those defensive coordinators on the other side.
We were combing through the locker room late last week and kind of getting a feel from some players on why Ben has resonated on sort of an emotional level in that locker room. And I was struck. I don't know if you were part of the scrum where Tyreek Stevenson said he's crazy, and he meant it as a compliment, and saying like Ben's passion is something that really resonates with us. And then I followed up later with him and said, like, when he does those post-game huddles and gets all fired up before he hands out the game balls, what do you see as a player? And he said, a crazy person. And so, like, there is this element here where these players, I think they feel the fire and the passion and the investment, and it really is making a huge difference in the way their weeks go, because there's just an infusion of energy, but also purpose that has kept them on the right track. And I know you've been around Ben long enough to have some thoughts on kind of what the personality aspect of his leadership style really brings.
Yeah, you feel that purpose throughout the week. Monday through Saturday, he is, and like we said earlier, even during the game on Sunday, he is all business. He's got a plan, and he's following through with that, and he knows how he wants things done. And yeah, it's almost like those post-game celebratory locker rooms are like just a release of all that pent up, all that work that they've done that's pent up inside them. And obviously you can only do that when you win. And so it's like a good, the positive vibes are just exploding out of them. I kind of love that Tyreek said that crazy person thing. He is like a low key crazy person. Like, you wouldn't see him walking down the street and say, that man's psycho, but if you're around him a little bit, You're also like afraid to screw up in front of him, like because he knows what he wants and he will call you out if you're messing up.
Look, you're a fellow U of I grad. I put myself in Legends Bar on Green Street, like Friday night, you're just chilling with your friends, you're playing darts, and there's the one guy that like all of a sudden you're just hanging out at happy hour, but now he's taking this darts game super serious. And Ben seems like he's that guy, right?
He doesn't want to lose
at any point. So it'll be fun to watch where he takes his journey down the back half of the season. I do want to get into a Caleb Williams conversation before I set you free, but before we get there, the concern list that you have for this football team. It's obviously a team that has notable flaws. They're not hiding from any of them, and they got things to work on. But what are the 2 or 3 things at the top of your list where you say this has to get cleaned up if they have any prayer of competing beyond week 18?
Well, the number one thing that comes to mind is just the injuries in the secondary. I think CJ Gardner-Johnson has been a great addition. I think probably got more out of him these first 2 games than you ever dreamed of. And you hope if you're the Bears that keeps going. You wonder what that's going to look like if and when Kyler Gordon returns. Are they going to find a way to get both those guys on the field? I do think, look, we saw it in Cincinnati. Like, you can throw the ball on these guys, and that's going to be a problem at times, and it already has been. And so certainly cleaning that up, potentially getting healthy with Kyler and or Jalen. We don't really have any update on where he's at, if he's even going to be back this year. That's concern number one. And then, I look on the other side at the offense, and, I think you look at that Cincinnati game, not to keep pointing to that game, but even before the big play to Colston, you looked at some of those one-on-one matchups with the left tackle over there, and it didn't go so well. I give them a lot of credit because this offensive line has been really, really good.
Really good.
Really, really good. And you even look at some of the advanced numbers. ESPN Analytics does pass blocking win rates and run blocking win rates. And I haven't seen it. It's updated every week. I haven't seen the latest. But as of last week, they were top 3 in both in the run and the pass. And so credit where it's due. Like, they're doing a really good job on that offensive line. If there's any little concern, it's at the left tackle spot, and perhaps can they give him help when they need to against some of these good pass rushers? Obviously, they handled the Giants really well, so it's not like you can really complain about that. Darnell Wright was really good on that other side too.
There's no question. I'll start our Caleb discussion here really quick because I wrote about this play at The Athletic for Tuesday. The 20-yard completion that Caleb had to Colston Loveland on the second to last touchdown drive on Sunday. It's a play where if you watch it back, there are receivers open underneath, and there's a lot of times where Caleb doesn't necessarily rip it to receivers that are open when they're open, and yet he avoids pressure. You've got Darnell Wright on the right side of the line, who you just mentioned, absolutely stoning a spin move from Brian Burns. And then Caleb gets outside on the move to his left, across his body, leaping flamethrower to Colston Loveland, and Loveland makes a ridiculous catch. Start with Caleb in regards to that play, but certainly for me, the significance of that play was you had 3 top 10 draft picks all stepping up and making a high-level play on the same snap in a high-leverage situation. But the quarterback's got to be part of that, and he obviously came through huge in those final sequences on Sunday.
Yeah, he did, and he's been really impressive when he's rolling out to his left. He did that. That's wild. There was another time in that game, I don't think it was a completed pass. I forget exactly. I think it was going the other direction possibly too, where he just threw an absolute laser out to his left. You don't see many quarterbacks doing that. And that's the type of thing that makes you say, yeah, this is why this guy was drafted first overall. I think he's done a really good job. You kind of seen his feel for when to run and when to stay back and look for a throw. His feel for that has really, really improved this season, and especially these last couple of weeks. I think you can feel that. I don't know if it's just more time on task in this offense, more understanding of what Ben wants to accomplish, and possibly even just the fact that, like, I wonder how much he going into a play knows, okay, if I need to exit, I'm going here, versus maybe in the past it was run for your life behind an awful offensive line a year ago and get out wherever you can.
The other play I starred, and it's one that speaks to this a little bit, is it's the first quarter, and you'll remember it, and you can find it on social media for those that need to rewatch it. But it's it's the end zone shot to Olamide Zaccheaus on the extended play that Zaccheaus couldn't catch, and like the play starts, and when you look at it, you're like, okay, the timing of this is off from Jump Street. To me, it looked like Caleb was a little bit too quick through his progressions. He misses DJ on an out route because he's progressed off it before DJ has made his break. There's a curl open to the left side. He turns that down, and then it becomes, playground football again. And Caleb puts this ridiculous throw. It should be a 23-yard touchdown if Zaccheaus catches it. And there's all the entire Caleb experience wrapped into one where you're like, there's some real basic quarterbacking stuff that's got to get a little bit sharper so that you just get that 8-yard gain off the snap. And yet he's got the ability to turn the extended play into a touchdown, and he puts a football there that should be a touchdown if it's caught. And you're just like, man, like, I can understand why Ben says, I don't feel the pressure to call the perfect play anymore because this quarterback can go and do some things. Do you remember the sequence I'm talking about? And if so, how do you kind of sum that up in the entirety of the Caleb Williams experience?
I love the aggressiveness there. I love that he wants to make throws like that. And not only just wants to do it, but goes out there and tries to do it. You look at some of the drops in this game on Sunday, and to me, it's like, man, he's putting the ball where he needs to put the ball. They just got to come through with the catch. And so just keep doing what you're doing. I really do think the drops part of it in that game was, as Ben called it, an anomaly, and it probably was. Like, if it's not happening in practice, I don't think it's a huge concern. But yeah, I mean, look, Caleb does some stuff every once in a while. I know sometimes it doesn't look pretty when he's spinning around in the pocket trying to orient himself as maybe some pressure's coming in. But there's certainly a lot to be excited about when he puts the ball on the money on a throw like that.
5 of their last 7 victories now have come with game-winning drives that have featured go-ahead scores in the last 2 minutes. And so now this is a testament to how clutch Caleb is. And this, to me, there's so much significant about a quarterback who now has this track record, like the ability to bring his team to victory when they're in danger. And then you pair that with the idea that Caleb doesn't turn the ball over a lot. And you've got these 2 sort of huge boxes at the top of your QB1 checklist where you're like, okay, we want a quarterback that's not going to put the football in harm's way. And we certainly want one that can take over a game when the game's on the line. And so with all these other flaws, and there are a lot of them on Caleb's scouting report that need to be addressed, when you have those 2 boxes checked near the top of your list, all of a sudden the world opens up to you. And it feels like it's easier to go through the developmental process when you don't have to work through those 2 big boxes.
It's huge. It's absolutely huge. And look, he's caught up to Jaden Daniels in terms of fourth quarter game-winning drives. I think Bo Nix might have 1 or 2 more than him. Just looking at the guys in his draft class, obviously, Penix and May didn't play the whole season last year, so they're a little bit behind in those metrics. But he's caught up in that area, and they've done a really good job this year of pulling those out. And another thing too is the sacks, Dan. I mean, I think it's 13 or 14 through 9 games. It was 68 a year ago. So I mean, it's not like they're not getting pressure. Pressure's coming. I think he's done a good job of feeling where it's coming from. And obviously that offensive line overall has been a lot better too.
Everyone's trying to figure out whether Caleb is, the Bears forever quarterback, whether he's going to be the starting quarterback here in 2029, whether his run's going to go deep into the 2030s. And my quick knee-jerk response to that is we don't know. No one knows. And so now, especially inside of this season, you just kind of have to live in the now, understanding that there's a lot of big picture uncertainty out there, but also allowing the quarterback to kind of navigate this journey with this new coach who seemingly has answers for him in every way, shape, and form. And so a couple last things for you. The pairing of Ben and Caleb, through your eyes, what is the significance of them as a duo?
Yeah, I mean, I think I think you're really optimistic about what these 2 guys can do. And they really do seem to be on the same page, despite the fact that, Caleb's a 23-year-old quarterback. Like, he seems working with a 39-year-old coach. Like, they seem like they look at the game the same way. And you hear, I mean, it seems like every week on Monday, Ben's talking about how he went through every play with Caleb, and they've been working on seeing the game the same way. And you just don't know that was quite happening to that level with the previous coaching staff. It certainly didn't seem that way from some of the stuff that was said over the offseason. But it's a pairing that has you feeling, look, we're feeling optimistic for this team heading into a stretch with the Eagles and the Packers twice and the Lions. And we're saying they just got to, stay in, keep these games close and take it. They're going to have a shot at it. And that was like unfathomable a year ago.
Yeah, and it sort of leads me to my closing point here and question for you is that, look, like they're 6-3 now, and I think everyone would agree that that's ahead of schedule for what everyone's expectations for this season were. Most people kind of projected 8 or 9 wins for this team, 10 if all broke correctly, and the goal was to be a competitive football team that could play relevant football down the stretch of December and January, and ultimately start to develop their core identity with the players that are going to be a part of their future. If they are able to get to 9 or 10 wins, I think you say they cleared the bar for this season, no matter how the picture looks going down the stretch. And so that's a comforting place to be, even with a lot ahead of them and a lot of meaningful football ahead. But you got to feel really good about the direction, because it does feel substantive. And I've said, like, look, like they've spent so many years in the basement of the NFL trying to claw up to the middle tier. It feels like they're on sturdy ground in the middle tier now. And now you're just trying to figure out how you find your way up to the elevator to get to that next tier.
In a sense, looking solely at these next 8 games in this season, they have nothing to lose. Like, they can just go out there and play their style of football, and they're going to have a chance to be in the playoffs here. They don't necessarily have the pressure that the Eagles, the defending champs, have, that the Lions, who have all these expectations of bringing home a championship to Detroit. You're right. Like, the expectations were 8 or 9 wins, and they're going to have a real shot to surpass that here down the stretch. I know the schedule's hard, but these are going to be winnable games. And that is just, you look at what Ben Johnson has brought here. I really feel like you can feel the guys in the locker room just believing in what their coach is talking about. And they're gonna give themselves a chance here down the stretch.
It's incredible to be a part of. It's so strange for us to be covering relevant football at this stage of the season. It's very rare that we get that opportunity, and we're not looking ahead to mock drafts and top 10 picks. I said to someone yesterday, I said, look, like the Bears are going to be picking in the late teens. Draft season is going to be decidedly less exciting than it's been the last few years. And that's a great thing for the city of Chicago, that the exciting part comes in November and December and hopefully January.
Somebody mentioned to me the other day, this or that team is in contention for the number 1 pick. And for the first time all year, I thought, I have no idea who, like, I know just from knowing football, but I hadn't actually gone and looked at, okay, who's in line right now? Like, if the season ended today, who has the number 1 pick? Like, that hadn't been a thought in my mind, like, this whole season, which is refreshing, honestly.
It's a beautiful thing. And you look, like the Giants just fired their coach. They're going back into a coaching search. And so you don't have to deal with that in January either. So there's a lot of things coming ahead in the 2026 Bears offseason. They're going to be different than they've been in recent years. And that's a great thing. Sean, appreciate you stopping back by. It's always a phenomenal conversation. And today was much of the same.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me. Always happy to join you.
Folks, that's Sean Hammond of the Chicago Tribune. I am Dan Wiederer of The Athletic. Remember to check back in with us later in the week for our game preview podcast to preview Bears-Vikings Sunday in Minneapolis. For Sean Hammond, I'm Dan Wiederer. For our producer, Adam Stinzinski, this is Take the North. Great talk. See you out there.